Hello, David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. Welcome back. We've got a very special video today. Well, it's incredibly special because it focuses on probably everybody's leaned into favorite movie, and that is Casino Royale. We're celebrating the 20th anniversary of Casino Royale today. I've already started the mission. I'm dressing in my Venice Daniel Craig running outfit. I've got a Sunspell shirt. I've got the Venice long sleeve polo. Heck, I even broke out my Casino Royale Omega watch. I'm fully loaded, as they say, but I'm not quite fully loaded because I need my foil, my partner in crime, to talk about one of these movies. And we'll see if this is a debate, but only time can tell. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Calvin Dyson. How are you?
Hello. I'm very well, thank you, David. Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited to be doing one of these again because it's been a fair while. Time has flown by in the last over a year, I want to say. But no, thanks for having me on. I'm very much looking forward to getting into this.
We're ignoring Brosnan's Tomorrow Never Dies, which is give the people what they want. We have not been giving the people what they want. I get so many people asking for you to come on the show, talk about a movie, and then it takes a year. That's not good.
I get the same in my comments as well. So we definitely, once we're done with this, we definitely need to schedule in when we're recording the next one. Yeah, because we don't have that many more movies left to discuss either. Because I know that when we started this series, a fair few years ago, we were very much sort of focusing on the films that we have differing opinions on, and sort of coming at it from a positive and maybe a slightly negative skewing angle. And then we've kind of gotten into these films where maybe we're of a similar kind of mindset. I guess we'll find out as we go through. Because honestly, this was the first time I've seen Casino Royale in maybe 2 or 3 years. It's been that long since I've rewatched this one. It was
quite that way about Casino Royale. For some people, what I've talked to them, especially in this 20th anniversary year, which is mind-boggling to think it's 20 years, but I find that when I ask people about Casino Royale, they say the same thing because it's so hollowed ground. It's not a 2-screener, as I say it. You're not checking your messages or going on Instagram or playing Sudoku while you're watching Casino Royale. It's a locked-in movie, so you've got to take 2 hours and 26 minutes to really focus. It's dare I say, watching Casino Royale for a lot of Bond fans is an event more than oh, I'm not doing anything tonight. I'll just put on Casino Royale. Do you find that way?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It is kind of, we're going to get into it. It's kind of status as one of the more sort of serious Bond films, I guess. It did sort of take the series in a very different trajectory, really, following on from Dine of the Day. Of course, we'll get into it, but it is one of those real sort of it's like one of those fine dining meals where you need to sort of relish every mouthful to really get the most out of it. This isn't like a grab from a shop on the go and kind of walk down the street looking at your phone and eating. It's kind of oh no, you really need to pay attention to this.
It's the Michelin star James Bond movie.
There you go. Perfect.
I waxed and waned off of you. Yeah. That's the new tagline on the new poster. Let's set the table, as we always do. I want to know, I mean, you were probably a zygote, but 20 years ago, when you saw Casino Royale, what was the situation? What was the environment? Or maybe you didn't see it 20 years ago. I don't know.
Oh, no, I did. I mean, I was 17 years old, I think, just when this came out, October Baby, and this was out mid-November, something like that, I think here in the UK. And it's that, I don't know if you had a similar kind of thing around that age. I know a lot of people do with Bond, where you get into it when you're younger as a kid, and it's quite a formative sort of thing. And then, you have those awkward teenage years where you move a little bit away from all of the things that you liked when you were a kid, and you're not quite as into it. That being said, still at this point, From Russia with Love, the video game had come out the year prior. I'd played that, and I was definitely going to go and see this because it was a new Bond film. How could I not? And I remember me and my dad going to see it. I just started sixth form college here in the UK, which is kind of where you go when you're 16, 17, 18 years old before you go to university. But that was, again, just this transitional kind of stage in life, out of high school now and everything. And I remember we went to the cinema to see it on maybe a Thursday. I think it was the day it came out. It was a pretty dead screening, actually. There were not that many people there, and that
Oh.
stuck out with me because I'm so used to now, like, every Bond film I've seen since on, like, day of release, it's like huge crowds of people are there. This one was a bit different, and because the film itself is so different, I
Mm.
did not warm to it immediately because it was just, I remember me and my dad coming out and kind of having the attitude of like, well, it was a good film, but it wasn't a Bond film, maybe. And then in the years subsequent, kind of going back to it, came to really appreciate it for what it was rather than what I was kind of thinking it was going to be. Again, following Die Another Day, which, for a long time I was, big fan of, particularly when I was younger. And this is such like a line in the sand kind of change. I'm really curious to know what your thoughts of it were when you first saw it.
Well, so much for variety, people. You might as well dial out of this video right now. Not only, well, let me set the stage. I knew obviously there was a lot of hype around this movie, and I'd become way back into Bond. Obviously, I've told you Tomorrow Never Dies and The World Is Not Enough just crushed my world. And so by the time Die Another Day came along, and I forgave its trespasses, with some of the wonkiness of it, I still loved it, and I was now really into the hype engine of James Bond. Like, that was my core life. I shed off all my other hobbies. They were gone, all my other focus on movies. And now it was James Bond. So even in the preheat leading up to it, when he was, announced as an actor, I didn't get into the whole, like, Bond blonde thing. I was like hyped. I was like, this guy, he's our Bond. We got to support him. So I already was kumbaya. I was invited to the United States premiere of the movie, which was at Johns Hopkins here on the Northeast, because Cubby Broccoli was there when he had heart disease, and they had donated an entire wing to this. So that's why the premiere was there. All the premiere monies went to Johns Hopkins. So we went there. I donated a prize. Danielle and I were invited as VIP guests. We didn't have to pay a thing. Like, this was, for me especially, this was like, holy cow, like total imposter syndrome. Like, why are we at this premiere, with all these people that probably paid $10,000 a head? So we went in there heady, and I just couldn't believe it. And I sat down and watched that movie. And this is where, there's not a lot of variety between us. I encountered the movie, engaged with it, was thoughtful about it, but I don't know how it sat with me. I remember afterwards, it certainly didn't feel like after I watched No Time to Die, where it's a funeral, and not the Live and Let Die funeral, where everybody's like, dun, 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 dun. It was more like, dun, 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 dun. I said to myself, this was not Die Another Day. This was not Pierce Brosnan. This was kind of dour. And did I like it? And I even, dare I say, I can't believe I'm saying this today, I actually was thinking, like, did it get slow? Like, was there like, the love story? Do I want that? Do I want a real story in my James Bond, or do I want, where's the Q scene? We're going to get into it all, but there were so many missing components to me that I was like, in my Bond fan brain, and I know you do this too, it's like, I need the check off bingo card. My bingo card was so empty. And I'm like, I know it's a good film, but is it a Bond film? Is it a Bond film that I would love? And this lasted not days, weeks, until I had to, and I think maybe this is what you're saying, is I had to go back and recount and almost slough off my expectations of a Bond film, and even James Bond himself, because he was a very different James Bond. He was literally a blunt instrument, as opposed to this charming, tall drink of water like Brosnan is, who could charm, the pants off of anybody. I don't care who you are. But this was not that guy. He was a bit of a thug in a suit, as they say. And I had to rewash my brain in expectation of Bond. When I did that, I started to really embrace it and break it down.
Absolutely. Again, it doesn't sound like there's much variety between our sort of first impressions and then kind of growing to love it for what it is. Because I remember by the time Quantum of Solace came around, I was fully on the hype train again. Like, I was like, Casino Royale, I was like, oh yeah, I guess there is this Bond film coming out with this. Like, I also was not particularly, I wasn't like very active online at that point either, so I did kind of miss the whole not blonde, not Bond, or whatever
Yeah.
the website was, that was sort of having a go at Daniel Craig. I do remember there was a story in the newspapers about how, Bond's driving this, is it a Ford Focus in the car, the
Yeah.
car that he
Yeah.
drives
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
Bahamas, and it's an
Yeah.
automatic, and Daniel Craig can't drive a stick shift and all that kind of stuff. And my dad being a bit incensed about that, sort of like, can't believe that they're giving James Bond this kind of car. Obviously, all of that was proven wrong when the movie came out, and it was a huge success, reinvented
Yeah.
Bond for a new generation. But
By the way,
again, yeah.
with that Ford Focus, they were less kind here in the States when they saw the image, and I think there was a clip of it out there. They noticed his like white shirt. They said he looked like someone working on a cruise um, with glaucoma glasses.
Amazing.
These are the screen accurate glasses he was wearing, driving, like you said, a Ford Econobox. So he had the glaucoma glasses, he had the cruise line ship shirt, and he was driving a Ford Focus, and they're like, "This is James Bond."
Yeah, no, exactly. And then it is one of those things where when you see it in the context of the film, it's like, oh, well, he hasn't acquired the Aston Martin yet. He hasn't gotten there yet as a character. And even with his outfit, it kind of, is how he kind of, he's not quite going undercover, but he takes the opportunity to sort of pass as the valet, and it sort of factors into it like that. But it was kind of seeing the film with all of that stuff in context.
Yeah.
Articles about like, there's not going to be as much action and whatever, and it's like, no, but it's like, it's a really great film where, yes, it might not have as bombastic action as maybe we were used to at that point, but that card game is like probably like 45 minutes of screen time, and it's as tense as anything in any Bond film, and it's a real magical film in that way.
Yeah, and we're going to break this down because it is a 20th anniversary, so we're going to get a little bit more forensic than usual, but we got to start with, we just said it, the elephant in the room. We got to talk about this guy right here, and that is, of course, James Bond himself. Here is the passport. So I know this is for Calvin. If everybody else is enjoying it, that's fine too. He loves when I do the prop game.
I do. I love this. It's always so unexpected. Like, what's it? When is he going to play the glasses completely?
I feel like the Carrot Top of the Bond community, like how he brings out all the props and stuff. But let's break it down. I'd love to get your impression first, but also over time, like 20 years later, how did Daniel Craig do in this particular role?
Oh, in Casino Royale, especially,
Casino Royale,
I think he's I think he's like phenomenal, really. I think he's, and a part of that is down to a great script and a really great director in Martin Campbell as well. But I do think that he fits completely with the tone and style that they went for, and part of that is tailored around him as well. At the time, I think I was probably a bit lukewarm because exactly as you said, like particularly, a huge Brosnan fan. So coming into this where it's like, oh, this guy doesn't quite look like James Bond, or how we had always had James Bond look up until that point. So I think it just took a while to kind of get used to him in the part. And I feel like for me, it really took until like maybe even Skyfall before I was like fully like, oh, okay, yep, this is James Bond, and I'm not watching some kind of strange like adjacent, it's almost like the never say never again situation where it's kind of like I'm watching a Bond film, but I'm not watching a Bond film because it doesn't tick those boxes, as you said. Were you the same in this regard? Did it take you a while to kind of get used to him? Totally.
Well, it's so funny too, because obviously rewatching this film now to prepare for this discussion, I'm kind of kicking myself. I'm like 20 year ago, David, what were you thinking, not thinking this guy is Bond? Because what I've come to love about his portrayal of James Bond in actually all his films, even No Time to Die, is that he's so dangerous, that he's a capable individual that could crack your spine like a potato chip. And when I was rewatching this, it wasn't the black and white PTS scenes that wound up doing it for me. I'll tell you what it was. And I really thought about like, what was that tipping point where I'm like, ooh, this is a badass Bond. It was when he takes his gun and he's in the chase scene in the Bahamas and they're going through the construction, but he's on the crane and the guy takes the gun, he throws it at him, he catches it, and then he throws the gun back at him and smashes the guy in the face. I'm like, the whole audience, I remember at the time, the whole audience who didn't even know who this guy is was like gasping, and they loved it. And it's almost like now I look at it as like, yeah, that's Daniel Craig. That's my Daniel
Yeah,
Craig. And I've come to 20 years later, say what you will about his prickliness or what he said in the press. I mean, look, he was never going to be that fan ambassador. I get that. But I think as someone who's comes across as a dangerous, skilled character with the right amount of charm, I mean, he's not charmless.
Mm,
I was fully bought into him. And now when I
mm,
watch it again, like the Casino Royale, I'm watching this progression of this actor become this character as opposed to,
mm.
just he's trying, he's really trying. No, that he's really committed to the role.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that action sequence in particular does a really great job of just knowing that I don't think he even has a word throughout. Like once the chase starts and he's like running, I don't think he has a word up until what he gets to M's office, but you're learning so much about the character with how he's going about things in comparison with the free runner Malaka. Oh god,
Malaka, yeah.
Malaka, yeah, Jesus, I thought his name slipped my mind then for a second. Just with him moving so gracefully and like flipping through the car and stuff while Craig has to run around, and then he gets in the digger and he's blasting through that. Of course, going through the drywall, that's a kind of classic moment that always gets a laugh whenever you see this film with an audience. And the moment with the gun, as you say, it's such a cool, just how he catches it and then just like lobs it back. It's just, it's really nice. But he's a very, unpolished agent at that point, and that bit
Yeah.
where he like barges into the embassy completely, like the Bond of old would never have done that, like just completely just like walked in like bashing the ambassador's head in, or what, whoever that guy was, the administrative guy, and then taking the target out back and just shooting him once it's just like, wow, okay, this is a very different James Bond. And I think that scene, perhaps even more than the pre-credit sequence, does a great job of just like a mission statement for what they're going to do with this guy as James Bond.
Whenever I talk to anybody about that scene, the embassy scene, as you say, they say, how do they put it? It's so beautifully put that this is going to be a more grounded James Bond. The movie is going to be more grounded. He's going to be more grounded. It's the violence that is a little bit more realistic. It's not the Moonraker, sweep you up into the violence of a very slow kick that telegraphs and you've got time to move. This is going to be, dare I say, Bond-bastic. And as much as he comes across as a violent character, in watching this movie and just focusing on Daniel Craig for a moment, I also found that he had some amazing, maybe better in this movie than his other Bond movies, of quiet moments. He's not just telegraphing silence, but the brooding, thoughtful moments. And I'm not just talking about the shower scene, which we'll get to, but just when they're showing Bond on camera and he just looks and there's no dialogue, there's no talking. I'll tell you what it is. He has an economy of words where you can just look at him and you can project your thoughts and be pretty accurate what he's going through. That's very unique in a Bond film.
Yeah, no, totally. It's very Fleming-esque in that way as well. And obviously this is Casino Royale, when they were going back to, the very first James Bond novel, which had never been seriously adapted by that point. It feels slightly weird to have lived in a pre-Casino Royale movie world, because it feels like such a tentpole of the whole series at this point. So it makes sense that they're going back to Fleming, and in the books he's a very internalized character in a lot of ways. We're in his inner monologue quite a bit. We know an awful lot about how he feels about things, but he's not as talky maybe, and that's difficult for a film, because unless you're going to have like a Blade Runner style with Harrison Ford voiceover of like the internal monologue going on, how could we know those things? But I think Craig does a really great job of conveying so much with just like a glance, and he's barely even moving his face sometimes, and you know what he's thinking. He does that, he telegraphs that really well. And I think also, to your point about the violence as well, I think just tonally speaking as well, in terms of the violence in the film, in those opening sequences, we obviously see him achieve his 00 status by getting his 2 kills, important formative moment for Bond. And then also in the free running sequence, there are innocent people, like innocent construction workers dying, like, getting caught in crossfire and stuff, which is a really I remember this standing out to me at the time as well. I think maybe because I'd listened to the audio commentary for GoldenEye where Martin Campbell talked about how even when the tank's like crushing, these Russian police cars and stuff, they still had to have the shots of the Russian guys like hopping out of the car. It's like, oh no, they're all fine. It's no one innocent's really getting killed in all this. Casino Royale, nope. It's like that guy's gonna fall and that explosion's gonna go off. The guy's just gonna shoot the security guards that are there. It's like,
by the way, I still wince because that guy's just trying to stop Malaka. He falls and explodes. He doesn't just fall and go, oh, splat, like Primal. No, he explodes.
Yeah, no, it's a real Alec Trevelyan homage moment of like, oh yeah, it's not just the fall that kills him; it's the thing falling down and exploding.
Let's
as
beat the horse to death, so to speak.
Yeah,
I don't think I can say it anymore. So staying on just Craig for one moment, one of the things that I really want to get your opinion on is something that this movie did that was a little risky and avant-garde with the relationship of Craig. And it sounds like I'm going to a Bond girl moment. I'm not yet. That is the relationship with his boss. Now, you've got a situation where obviously he gets into trouble. It's set up right away, which I really like, that Bond is not only a blunt instrument, he's a bit of a rogue. He doesn't go rogue, but he doesn't exactly follow orders like our favorite relationships between Bond and M. What did you think about the Judi Dench relationship and also bringing her back after the corresponding Brosnan relationship?
Yeah, no, totally. It's I mean, a bit of a masterstroke, I think, in hindsight. I love Judi Dench in the Brosnan films and what they do with her, particularly in the likes of GoldenEye and The World Is Not Enough. But I think that they get a real good, consistent handle on the character in the 3 Craig films that she's in, because she's a bit all over the place in the Craig ones, where she's, really tough with him in GoldenEye, and then she's suddenly quite frivolous with him in Tomorrow Never Dies, being like, pump her for information and that kind of thing. The World Is Not Enough, obviously, much more emotional, involved in her, family dramas, basically. And then you've got Die Another Day, where she's like stone cold towards him. And I feel like there's a consistency with how her character is over the 3 Craig films. And I love that bit that introduces her, where she just bursts out of that meeting and she's just like having a go at Villiers, her assistant that's next to her. And I think that scene in particular where Craig is in her apartment and it's the first scene that they have together in the film just sets up their relationship so brilliantly. I really do love that scene. I think it tells you quite a lot about what their relationship is like, the point of his career that Bond is at, and how it's contentious, but also feeling different from the likes of GoldenEye, where they hit similar beats, but it feels quite different. How do you feel?
It's almost strange because I know that, yes, I mean, the apartment one is a perfect example because he is kind of getting one over on M. I mean, here we go. We got another prop. This is the little phone piece that he uses to break into her information, and then he steals it off and then uses it again at the one and only. But that's a daring move. I mean, you've got not only somebody that's a blunt instrument, but somebody that's breaking into his boss's apartment to gather information without asking her. And again, I think that the writers and the filmmakers are asking us to go on a very different ride of James Bond. I mean, this guy he's a rascal. I mean, is he foe? Is he friend? How does he go about his business? It's very unorthodox.
Totally. I mean, just like breaking into M's apartment and into his boss, could, have him thrown out at any moment. It's of the service, that is. It's really bold. And I think it's just a cool scene. I think Judi is fantastic in this film in particular, and I'm glad that they stuck with her, because for all of and I remember when Casino Royale came out, having conversation with my friends about, so where does this fit in the timeline, kind of thing, when we were trying to be quite linear about things. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. She's a fantastic actress. I'm glad that we've got her back in this instead of someone new at this point. And I feel like at that point in time in particular, it really helped with some feeling of continuity, because there are very few other, on camera elements of continuity. So the fact that she's there did help kind of tether this, certainly at that time for me anyway, as a Bond film, because it's like, oh well, Judy's here, so it is James Bond.
That's true. Yeah, there's that Whoopi, that lovely familiarity that she brings across. I will say, and this might be unpopular, and it could be unpopular with you, I don't know, but
Oh.
I I like her portrayal in this film and even Quantum because she still felt like M, and dare I
Mm.
say M's place in the Bond films. I like when M and Q and Moneypenny are enhancers. They're salt and pepper to the steak,
Mm.
and the steak should be James Bond. It should be a James Bond film as opposed to, you know, when you get into Spectre or No Time to Die.
Mm.
I know it's not an affectionate term, the Scooby Gang. The Scooby Gang has its own storyline. Like even when
Yeah.
Bond's not on screen, we're still finding out what's happening to the Scooby Gang, and I don't know how well they propel the story along. This felt like M was there to help with the story, to help with
Mm.
Bond, to help support him. Same with Quantum, and then we start to get very focused in Skyfall, but then
Mm.
wildly in some of the other films too. But I don't know. I don't want to say it out loud like this is the right place for M. Stay in your lane. But I do feel like M stays in her lane.
Oh, we're definitely bookmarking this when we get to Skyfall then, because when we get to talking about that, because
Yes.
I love that, you know, how she's used in that film. But I do hear you though, particularly on how overused the whole Scooby Gang was like later on in the Craig era. It's crazy to think that when Casino Royale came out, we obviously have no Q, no Moneypenny, and at the time, you know, I felt jarring. Yeah, that felt jarring as a fan that they weren't there, because to your point at the start about, you know, certain box ticking elements, it's like, okay, we obviously have the Q scene and the Moneypenny scene that doesn't exist here. And then by the end of the Craig era, we're all like, oh, I wish we saw less of these people. It's
you know,
interesting.
but that's an important part of this discussion. When I was rewatching this, but certainly I've noticed it before this time, I didn't feel. Not only did I not feel, oh, like where are they? I certainly don't feel that nowadays. Like, oh, you know what this movie needs is a Q scene. I not only did I not feel that, I felt like the omission of these characters allowed us to play in this world of this new Bond. And you know, I'll give you a perfect example. One thing that I noted with Bond and a lack of a Q was that Bond was going to be becoming more focused on using this incredible gadget called a cell phone.
Good
And we
old
had to
Sony
get used to
Ericsson.
this. Yeah, we had to get used to, dare I say, a more Connery-esque, before Connery's gadgets got crazy, you know, just using a hair, you know, to see if somebody broke into a closet. But now this was a Bond who used a cell phone and other people's cell phone. And even in Quantum of Solace, wait a minute, he used a cell phone. Like, you know, these were the types of things. So he had to use espionage, ingenuity. And I've said this about Daniel Craig's Bond. And again, I'm going to get whipped for this. He doesn't need to be the smartest Bond in the room. He needs to be the most resourceful. And he's such a resourceful character. He's such a skilled and capable character that he can use a cell phone. He doesn't need a rebreathing device. He doesn't need some of the Brosnan types things. We don't need the wackiness because we're more grounded in a real world. And I think that was obviously very deliberate. But I know you are the man who loves a Q scene. Did you feel like the omission was like, I just haven't had my dessert? I had a great meal, but where's my dessert?
Certainly at the time I did. Like I was you know, a bit annoyed that Q wasn't in this, and to a lesser extent Moneypenny as well. What I think is interesting about Casino Royale is that there are places where they could have had Q and Moneypenny. M has a secretary throughout this film, Villiers, played by Tobias Menzies, who, funnily enough, is Villiers. Like, I think that is a reference to James Villiers, who played Bill Tanner in For Your Eyes Only, and I do kind of wonder if maybe in a previous incarnation of the script, like that character just was Bill Tanner and then they changed it. But, you know, M has that secretary. They could have just made that Moneypenny. There is the guy that comes along to, probably the most fantastical thing in the film is the chip that they put in Bond's arm to track him. Yeah, exactly. Just this wordless guy that turns up. Apparently, he was just on the special effects team. He was one of the like on-set like
I didn't know that.
Special effects guys. Yeah, I think Martin Campbell said that in the commentary, because I did watch that just before we recorded.
He did have a very natural way. Like he's just like some guy walked on and I bought it.
Yeah, right. And then there's the bit later on where Bond's you know, he's poisoned. He needs the defibrillator, and you have these kind of nameless MI6 people
Yeah.
sort of giving him advice and stuff. Again, you could have made that character Q. And I think the decision to not make those characters, those traditional characters, is probably a wise one ultimately, because, as you say, it means that we are much more focused in on Bond and
Yes.
probably M, I think. Whereas if, he's going to be a bit snappy with Villiers when he's on the phone, like in the airport, just put her on and all that kind of stuff. And maybe that wouldn't have worked if it was Moneypenny. Maybe we'd have been distracted in that moment because it's like, oh, wow, who's this actress who's taking over from Samantha Bond, Caroline Bliss, Lois Maxwell? And then the same thing for Q as well. So instead they just have this wordless mustached guy come along and chip him, and that's kind of it.
They had a big story to tell. I'll tell you, as you recount this, it's becoming reminiscent of what they did right with the surrounding characters in Connery and Roger Moore, with the nameless ones, the military people, the ancillary MI6 people that you see in Dr. No with like the earphones on that just go and they're killing 10 minutes of scene, but you don't know who they are, but they add so much complexity and richness and, dare I say, color to the film. I'm like, you know what? I feel like I'm world building. I'm in a world where I don't need to know their name. I don't need to have a whole side story that introduces them. But in the later Craig films, and again, I'm not going to compare them, but here I am doing that. I feel like there was almost like they felt like an obligation to be like, well, we've got to tell you who this woman is, because otherwise, you're going to be lost. And it's like, no, I just want to know that it's a complex world like my world.
No, totally. And in a way, it kind of harkens back to, I suppose, Moneypenny is, Lois Maxwell was, an established actress, and, they very much make a point of her in the very first Bond film. But Q, they obviously have Boothroyd in Dr. No, and then from Rush with Love, Desmond Llewellyn finally comes into the series. It's only really from the third film, Q, that he becomes Q, and they make more of a thing of it. But up until that point, he is just sort of a bit of a, I know they do name him, but it's kind of nameless sort of bureaucrat. I don't know how to describe him, but it is, and Dr. No is a great example of that, where we do see a lot of people, even like the guy that goes to pick up Bond from the casino in Dr. No. He just appears and we never see him again. He's got a couple of lines, but you just get the sense that this is a major operation, whereas I guess when they focus more in on just M, Moneypenny, Q, it feels smaller in a way. This feels like, oh wow, there is just a room of people working at MI6 that he could, on call for when Bond needs a defibrillator. In a way, it's almost a bit of a shame that they didn't stick with that, even though I'm glad that they introduce Q and Moneypenny, and Bill Tanner comes along in the next film as well. But it does end up feeling smaller, and you get that Scooby Gang kind of thing going on, which you don't have in Casino Royale.
No, but it allows us to, magnify the other characters so we feel a richness of them, because I think we need to move on to the big baddie, the chief. And this was going to be always, and I obviously, probably like you, I've read Casino Royale, if not before the movie, then after. And Le Chiffre was going to be a major character, a major focus in pulling it off. They had a very different treatment of Le Chiffre, obviously, in the movie. I'm just going to I'm going to ask the most obvious question, but Mads Mikkelsen, what did you think of his Le Chiffre?
I think again, I think this is just a common thread with my feelings about the film. Like, certainly at the time, I liked him. I didn't love him. It's a much more sort of reserved villain performance than what I think we had throughout the Brosnan films. Gustav Graves and Elliot Carver spring to mind. It's like these big, wild, like quite camp villain.
Is that who you were comparing him to? I'm curious to see. Like, we always have these comparisons in our mind. Who did you go into the theater almost expecting to see?
I guess Gustav Graves, because that's the most recent one to that point. So it's okay. This is what Bond villains are, and he's, I like that they gave him, like, the milky eye and the weeping blood, thing is a cool villain affectation. But Le Chiffre has skyrocketed, in my opinion, in the years subsequent, in part down to Mads Mikkelsen himself, because I love the man so much. I think he's fantastic. I can't take credit for this. I think it was on Twitter, like, years ago, where I saw someone talking about his career, and they said the interesting thing about Mads Mikkelsen is that in his native Denmark, whenever he's in like a Danish film, he's like an average guy with a family and a job and stuff, and then in English language films he's like the creepiest villain like character that you've ever seen. It's quite fascinating. I do recommend another Exactly. I
Yeah.
recommend Another Round and The Hunt, which are two Danish
The
films
Hunt
that
is
he was in.
amazing.
Oh, it's so good. It's
Yeah.
amazing. But then also, just him as, an Indiana Jones villain, a Marvel villain in Star Wars, of course.
He
As
enhances every film, but I have
Absolutely.
to agree with you. Like when I first saw him, and this is a themed event that you're watching 30 minutes in of, is it a grower or a shower? And I'm sorry that deals with the lower GI of some of us, but we do talk about in terms of films getting better, and we are in the 20th
Mm.
year of something that is like, the most incredible, wine that Bond would have. It
Ah!
this gets better. I mean, this portrayal of this villain, I think, gets better. I will say it didn't take that long for me to adore
Mm.
him and really look at him and what he did. But I will say, even in the first showing, like Bond, I felt like this is a dangerous character. He is
Mm.
as bad can be. He deals with terrorists. I mean, the way they've set up that in the
Yeah.
beginning, he's, you know what it is? He has almost like a snake-like charm of
Yeah.
being cold and calculating, cold-blooded like a snake.
Mm.
The lack of protest with his girlfriend's arm being chopped off is
Oh,
just
yeah.
think about how bad he is, that he is for Le Chiffre. There is no
Mm.
love in his world. He has no love. His heart is stone. And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
just
yeah.
get this like very scary coldness of there is no bargaining with this man. He is
Mm.
dangerous. And I got that from the first viewing.
Oh, that's incredible. That's yeah. I think I was with every or most of the elements in it. I think I was in that, to use your grower not a shower phrase, which I love. If you'd have like made me guess like before we started recording, what phrases is David gonna come out with in this recording?
It's a
Grower not a shower
Davidism.
is not.
Yeah.
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 But no, I mean he really is like, now I would rank him as one of my very top Bond villains. I think Hannibal. He's my favorite Hannibal Lecter
Oh
that
yeah.
there's ever been on screen. I think he's phenomenal in that series. Um, and yeah, just it's interesting because I know that I've seen some sort of more detracting sort of opinions about him in terms of like, does he feel weak because he is these other characters come in and they're about to chop his girlfriend's arm off and all that kind of stuff, and he's they've got him in a chokehold, and we see him in those weak, vulnerable moments that they
Mm.
don't often put main Bond villains in unless he's being confronted by Bond. But I think there's just such a richness. There's a real texture to him and his motivations and what he's got going on in his head. I like that he is kind of just he's one piece of this much wider puzzle, though to this day, and this is perhaps more of a testament to my financial illiteracy than anything else, I'm not sure I understand the whole stocks thing, but I
Oh
get it.
yeah.
I get that in what he wants and what he needs in certain
Yes.
situations, I
Yes.
understand because of the filmmaking.
The
But
shorting of the stock. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think so. That's a great point because there is some vernacular and some aspects of this that it's such a thorough film in how they set up the
Mm,
relationships amongst the main target and
mm,
protagonist that you can sort of get lost and still be found. And I'll say that the one thing I loved about Le Chiffre and Bond is the connection, the relationship that they
mm,
do have. It is this sort of cat and mouse. I mean, you get it,
mm,
when Bond is winning at the one and only club,
mm.
but even more so, I think with this, you've got Mads Mikkelsen's character, you got Le Chiffre, who is going against Bond in a lot of these scenes, but there's
Mm.
this calmness about them and how they attack each other psychologically, even during
Mm.
the Baccarat game. I mean, there's a lot of
Mm.
that there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that again, maybe to a point of, no, I do understand poker now, in part thanks to our friend Joe Darlington, who
Oh,
does a great job of explaining.
perfect.
Yeah, but certainly at the time when I was watching, the film, I didn't have a clue how to play poker or anything like that. But I think the quality of the filmmaking, neither did Martin Campbell, actually, by the sounds of it, when they were filming this. But the quality of the filmmaking is such that you're with them in any moment. Like, I know when characters think they're doing well, when they're not doing so well, and it's so subtle. And I think that both him and Craig are really great at that, those subtle, just like even just locking eyes, like when they're about to flip over cards or bet or something. It's really tense. And I think you needed actors who understood subtlety to convey that, or you needed Mathis to the side just coming out with these, expositional lines of dialogue. Look, I think it's the tell.
Yes. And well, but I think that's why the 45 minutes that come before the 45-minute card game is all a genius move by the writers and the people that built this film, was to basically build such a strong foundation that you did feel the suspense. I mean, I remember, again, showing props off, but I remember when he goes to the One and Only Club and, he's breaking into security, doing all these things. And I was almost chewing my nails. I was so nervous because this was a situation where he could be found, is he going to get caught? He's pushing the envelope too much. But I wouldn't feel that suspense, or even the suspense when they're playing the Baccarat game for 45 minutes. I wouldn't care if they hadn't built that foundation of the characters.
No, absolutely. They do a great job of building up the film to that moment. And of course, Vesper Lynd, Eva Green. Is this a good segue to talking about her?
The perfect segue. Yeah. and I'd love to know right off the bat, because we want to really break her down. Excuse the pun. How did she sit with you? Oh gosh, all these puns. What was your impression of her in the beginning when you first saw it?
Funnily enough, I do think I loved her right from the off, even though at this point, no way! Oh my God, we're too similar in this regard. This is hilarious. Even though at this point I was slightly over one of the Bond girls being sort of, you think she's a goodie, and then by the end of it, she's a baddie. She's betrayed Bond, because we had that in Die Another Day, and we had that in The World Is Not Enough. And I know that Casino Royale, it's Vesper Lynd, so she has to do this if they're going to remain faithful to the book. But just in terms of performance, I love Eva Green. Just similar to Mads Mikkelsen, I will seek out stuff just because she's in it.
Yes.
And she's a quirky choice for a Bond girl, I think. And I don't know if I'm bringing in some impressions of her career post Casino Royale. Obviously, she's worked a fair few times with Tim Burton. She certainly skews more to sort of quirkier, more eccentric parts. But there is just something about her that's just a little bit kind of off kilter that I think works perfectly in, damaged goods, maybe is an appropriate term to describe how she portrays Vesper. And I really like that. That shower scene in particular is a real highlight for me, as just a tender, sweet moment between Bond and Booker. Oh, amazing.
All the shower scenes, there's a plethora of bathroom scenes, but the shower one in particular, yes, this is the crumbly glass that he holds when he's trying to get his act together and then finds her.
Nice.
I will say, again, lack of variety, but it's important because I think a lot of people are feeling this way. In my first viewing of Casino Royale 20 years ago, the one thing that was consistently positive as I walked out of that theater was, wow, Eva Green, Vesper Lynd, not just in being stunningly beautiful, like almost shockingly gorgeous, her eyes, her everything. But as a character of Vesper Lynd, I thought she was and is amazing. I will tell you, I think I know what you're talking about, Calvin, with Eva Green. She has almost a Burton-like emo sadness to her.
That's the word.
The doe eyes, it's this, and emo I know is sometimes a derogative term. I don't mean it in a derogative way. It's that lean into the darkness of things, that things have kind of a darkness or a grayness to them. And she seems to embrace that. I can almost see her, and I know she doesn't do this, but I could almost see her sitting at a window and just watching the rain fall and just being very content with that. It's just, she's got this kind of like sadness to her. Is it damaged goods? Who knows what kind of motivates that type, but she has that. And yet she has this absolutely jaw-dropping beauty The way
Mm.
she moves, and I know how young she was during this, the way
Yeah.
she moves and acts, she's an old soul at the same
Mm.
time. But I
Yeah.
think, well, I'm just going to say this. She is, out of the entire compendium of Bond films, she's my favorite Bond girl, period.
Wow. Yeah. No, I hear you. I think her and Tracy are up there as like the great loves of Bond's life. And even if by the end of the Craig era we were sick of seeing her in terms of, oh, she's on the grave and she's in the credits and whatever, but talking about this film in isolation, yeah, no, I think she's phenomenal. I think her and Craig have a really great chemistry together as well. It's
Yes.
just magical watching those two spar and have conversations, like the whole bit when they're in the car and he does, oh, you're Stephanie Broadchest, and she's like, no, I'm not, and just
Yeah.
those, it feels very real. And I like when they get to the hotel and then she's pissed off with him because he's used his real name with the hotel receptionist and she has to sign the thing and then tosses the pen. She just, like, so many, every interaction they have
Yeah.
is gold.
Most Bond films, I mean, think about the more ones especially, have this, and I'm going to put it, and I know I'm going to get grief for it, this kind of taming of the shrew moment that Bond has with the Bond girls, where they're fed up with him and they don't like him, or maybe he's even like killed their boyfriend, and then they get over and they have sex with him, and that's fine, and it's titillating and it's cute, and we love those too. But this one, it's a taming of both of them. Like, it's a taming of Bond, where he refuses to know love and love, and he sees women as dispensable playthings, truly, and she tames him more than he tames her. And I think it was such a bold move. And today in 2026, I think some men, I'm just going to call it out, might bristle at that and say, well, Bond's a tough guy, you would never do that. But something, it's done very differently than him becoming a father and softer in No Time to Die. It doesn't look like Bond is giving up. It looks like Bond is opening up a new dimension of who he is. And
Yeah.
she's enhancing him as
Yeah.
opposed to deflating him. I never feel like she's taking the Mickey out of him. And
Oh, yeah.
I love that we can go back, and by the way, we've done something. I think people think that we rehearse this. We don't. We've done something very organically, Calvin and I, as we usually do. We're talking about chemistry a lot. We talked about Bond in the audience and the chemistry. We talked about Bond and M. We talked about Bond and Le Chiffre and Bond and Vesper. This film, I think, does well with us and other Bond fans because the chemistry is right.
Yes, yeah, it is like all of these key components are sparking off each other in a real magical way. And sometimes it just comes together so perfectly. Sometimes it might not do, depending on who they cast in individual roles. But here it's just like, oh, it's top tier on all fronts. And I think you're bang on with the like Bond kind of having this growth of emotional maturity, if you will, through his relationship with Vesper, because he grows as a character an awful lot. I think there's probably more character development to him in this film than any other film in the series with regards to how he begins and how he ends. And I think that's really lovely. And again, just seeing, the dinner jacket scene is just another one of those magical things where who'd have thought in a Bond film a highlight scene would be him talking to the Bond girl about, a dinner jacket.
Yes. And by the way, I think, if you took the parts of Casino Royale, if you took the free running scene, if you take any of the scenes, the Baccarat scenes, if you take the Venice scene, if you take any of these individual scenes, it could have been what I affectionately call Bond porn. It could be these great scenes that just sort of exist for the scenes itself. And even, as much as I love The World Is Not Enough, there are some scenes like the caviar scenes where I'm like, oh, okay, I know why they created that, got to do something with the car. But in this film, the chemistry weaves a tapestry that's so tight of connective tissue between the characters and the story that it comes across as not a great Bond film, but a great movie. It's just a great movie the way it unfolds. And, to the point where we almost forget that Felix Leiter, a new type of Felix Leiter, is introduced in this film. He becomes so much a part of the fabric, but you also see this very interesting chemistry that you don't get with the other Felix Leiters, where he's sort of an ancillary character, Bond's sidekick, Robin to his Batman. In this film, it's very different. You almost feel like here's another agent trying to do a job that Bond can either connect with or it's going to get in his way. But we've got to talk about Felix Leiter. What do you think about Jeffrey Wright?
Absolutely. No, I think it's interesting then. I was sort of thinking as you were talking of like, well, yeah, actually, David's right. Like, when was the last time that we had a Bond and a Felix like spark off each other this well, chemistry
Mm.
wise? Doctor No is what sprung to mind. Some might say Thunderball, but other than those, it's kind of like, the last time the character appeared, License to Kill, Living Daylights. It's for some reason the spark just isn't there like it is in this film, and I think a part of that is because they cast Jeffrey Wright, who's another just fantastic actor that I at this point I don't think I'd seen him in anything else, and it's similar to kind of
Okay.
Mads and Eva, where it's like in the years subsequent, I'm like, oh yeah, no, he was fantastic in Westworld. He was one of the best things in that, and all these other films that he's been in, and he's just a reliably brilliant.
Yeah.
Character actor that will pop up. But no, I mean, I think he's really great here. He has the benefit also of obviously appearing in subsequent films with Craig, so they get a chance to really form a really strong relationship. Best Bond and Felix pairing in the entire series. I'd be so bold as to say. I don't know about you.
Disagree. No, I don't disagree. It's funny how you say Dr. No. I always have, but I was so getting Jack Lord moments because with Jack
Right.
Lord's portrayal of Felix Leiter, I wouldn't mind being the Jack Lord character as much as I wouldn't mind being the Sean Connery Bond
Mm-hmm.
because he's cool, he's badass,
Yeah.
he's calm, he's like, he doesn't freak out like some of the other Felix Leiters that we've experienced, and we love them all because we have to, they're children. But they're a little there for comedy relief or almost to be an antithesis of Bond, short, fat, doughy, loud, brash American, whatever you want to put on their heads. Not this guy. This guy is cool. I would want to be that Felix Leiter. It's like, hey, friend, how you doing? Like this and that. To the point where the Daniel Craig movies that don't have Felix Leiter, I miss him. I really am like, oh, you know what? You know what I could use right now is a palate cleanser of a Felix Leiter moment. And that's how well I think this Felix Leiter is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's funny in other instances of him appearing in this series, they do kind of cast him as mostly this kind of like bumbling bureaucrat kind of character. Like I'm thinking of like Diamonds Are Forever, Cecil Linder in Goldfinger as kind of there's still a bit of a something about them, but you get the sense that they're treating the character, they're casting the character in a way to make Bond look cooler. Or I don't know if maybe they did feel that Jack Lord was too cool to like they didn't want to. I mean, I know that with Rick Van Nutter they kind of went down a similar. Those are the only two Felixes that stand out to me though as kind of like, oh yeah, no, they're ones with like good chemistry with Bond and they feel like they are counterparts. And here, absolutely. I'd love to see the version of this film where Bond was able to just go up to Le Chiffre with a knife and just like stab him. And like, what would that have done for the rest of the movie, I wonder?
Oh my gosh, if they had like the scene like in the Body Worlds where obviously
yes,
that's the knife.
Amazing.
Like if they just did something like that and went Gadoosh. Not as complex, I guess, of a storyline. So they kind of went about that. But I will say
that Bodies exhibit, just while we're on it, I'm just curious.
What's that?
Have you ever been to that Bodies exhibit, like the real life?
I've been to like this is going to sound disgusting, a taste of it where they had like a little section of another museum, but I've never been to that. Have you?
I recommend it. Yeah, no, I've been 3 times. Like once in Vegas, once in Berlin, and then once in London. So it's a fantastic exhibit. Like I can't recommend it enough. It's just you go in thinking, oh god, this is going to be really macabre and quite sinister sort of thing, but you actually come out at the end of it with a real sort of appreciation of life, I guess, in a strange way, of biology and how bodies work. It's really, really great. But
where do you go for lunch after that, though? Where do you go for lunch? Just like a vegetarian place? Like
you get a salad. Yeah. Exactly. Or whatever the local vegan restaurant is.
I'm not having a rare steak after that. It's just no.
Yeah, no, exactly. But when I last saw it, which was in London, which was a fair while ago, they did have the poker game where all of the bodies are around the table. That was very cool to see.
Yeah.
But recommended if it ever.
I'm going to do it. I'll hold my stomach and walk in. Before we move off of characters, Calvin, and talk about kind of an interesting subject that is going to be a little bit of a quick fire hit list, I
Ooh.
do want to just stay because this film, what it does right is besides the main characters, it has this next level down of very colorful characters, the one sitting at the poker table, but then you've got Solange, you've got Vetter, you know, the one
Mm.
with the one eye and things like that, that are just so interesting in the world of Bond. Like if this was a video game and you were meeting them in the video game, you'd be like, it's over too quick. I fought the boss and it's over. It's like it talked to me about sort of the secondary characters. Were there any that stood out, like a Solange or anything like that, where you're like,
Mm.
wow, this really added to the moment? Like, yes, we need the sacrificial dove Bond girl. Check, there it is. But
Mm. Mm.
there was so much dimensionality to it.
Oh, totally. No, I completely agree with you. It's like in those roles that could be kind of tick list kind of things, but like with Solange, like they have that great romantic scene where they're on the floor and she's like kissing his body and she's going down. It's just like there's it feels quite different to what we'd seen previously, and I think with some of the henchman characters as well, like Getler's really cool, and then the Chiffre's girlfriend, the actress, I want to say Ivanka Milcevic, I think is her name.
Ivana Humpalot.
Ivana Humpalot. Excuse me? Ivana Humpalot. And I've on a toilet made out of solid gold, but it's just not in the cards now, is it?
Yes. Yeah. No, she's been in a lot of movies since.
Yeah. No, she has. Really cool. I think I knew her from an episode of Friends at that point. So I was like, oh wow, I think she's one of Joey's girlfriends in an episode or something like that.
Wouldn't doubt it.
You know,
how you doing?
Yeah, exactly. She stands out as like one of the few Bond villains that like actually kills James Bond for a matter of seconds. He's actually dead based on the poison
and even the terrorists who come back after Le Chiffre. I mean, think about how many characters and the dimensionality of this. It's shocking that this is one of these situations where it's not a Batman and Robin film where they have too many characters and you get lost and nobody gets their day in the sun. There are so many characters in this film. The highlights stand out and the next level stand out as well.
I completely agree. And even like Mr. White, like you forget that, he was just this like side character before they made the crux of the whole Craig universe kind of hinge on him and his daughter and his family, like what he did to Safin's family, like, way in the past. It's kind of like, well, yeah, he was just this relatively incidental, but very effective character. And I do even want to call out like the lady at the Ocean Club, the dealer. Like even those parts are perfectly cast. The receptionist, who again,
is great. Yeah,
they said in the commentary that she was the one that they had doing the screen tests with the James Bond candidates when they were like screen testing the role, which I thought, that's really cool that they gave her like a proper role in the film. But definitely. But all of those like small like what's his name, the banker who comes in, who's all like,
did you bring us chocolate? No, afraid not.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all of those like really small parts, which could just be throwaway and insignificant, are cast so wonderfully that they're memorable. All of those villains around that poker table. See, I even call them villains. They're not even villains, but all of the characters around that poker table with Bond and the Chiffre, they're all styled in such a way that they could be the main villain of a Bond adventure. It's just like everyone's got this unique, interesting look. And I love that about it. I feel like the attention to detail of the characters and even the incidental ones is really top notch.
I think a part of that, though, if I'm going to play psychologist for a moment, is that we've created an intimacy, a protective layer, if you will, around this film. Like we fly the flag of Casino Royale. Like, I'm, whatever, my tongue in cheek around Quantum of Solace. People will debate it all day long, but there's very little debate about Casino Royale. It's that favored child that nobody denies, gets all A's. You put their artwork on the refrigerator. That's Casino Royale. And because of that, we've adopted all these characters, even the ancillary ones. We've built backstories. We've seen fan fiction about it. Like the world, when you are introducing a Bond movie very often to a non-Bond, or as you call it, and I use this all the time, a normie, you will introduce them through Casino Royale because you just know it's a good film. It's a love story. It'll hit on this or hit on that. But I do have a question for you that might be a little bit a turning point in this video. Yeah, it's a little bit of that. You can't deny the fact that they made a conscious decision to put in a very different Bond film that purposely wanted to be different, some Bond tropes and some familiarity. And dare I say, in No Time to Die, they did this with music. They did this with Bond moments. And in No Time to Die, a lot of people thought it was jarring. Like, oh, okay, I see why you did that. You want to make sure we're back and we know. I'll give you a great example in Casino Royale. You have Bond win this little number. Even though the keychain is a DB9, he wins the DB5. He wins this.
Nice.
Of course, I had to have that for you. I had to have
the Playmobil one. Yes. Oh, I love it.
Which do you have this?
I don't. I've got the Lego one. I'll just grab down. So I've got this one.
How do you not have the Playmobil one?
I know, right? It's like I think I've there's a space on my shelf. I really do need to, because I've also got this like gold Danbury mint one, which beautiful. I really like. I've had that for a fair few years.
I've got the Agora one right here.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But
unbeatable.
You're just proving my point. So, I mean, they have moments in here, whether it's the very familiar David Arnold music, because that's transposed. They have, obviously, M is back as the same. We already mentioned that. They have the DB5. They have the Walther, PPK, which is an antiquated gun by that time. They have the P99, which was Brosnan's. They've littered the zone with familiarity and tropes. Do you think it detracts? Does it take away? Like, many people feel like, why the hell is the DB5 here for a moment? Are there moments where it's like, oh, that's, you should be ashamed of yourself for doing that? How does it sit with you, even after 20 years?
At the time, I don't think I was that conscious of it, but I think looking back, I think certainly I needed those things. I needed that familiar David Arnold sound. And even though we don't hear the James Bond theme until the very end of the thing, it's still of the same, like, it's a proper, really great, typically great David Arnold score. The DB5 being in there, you just needed that little reminder, or at least I think I did at that time. Yeah, this is a Bond film, and even though it feels so wildly different from what came before. And again, it probably fits in the same category as me being grateful that Judi Dench came back as well, in terms of like, I did need those tethers, because otherwise it could have been so completely like alien. Interesting, actually, thinking about this in relation to, the upcoming Amazon era of Bond, and if there's going to be any like, in front of the camera, behind the camera, like continuity, if that's going to, be relevant.
Although you and I are very interested in May of this year when a certain game comes out.
Yes.
And with that particular game, it is looking like they've embraced, the right amount of peppering of Brosnan and Craig together. There are so many wonderful, familiar moments. It feels like a Bond film more than some Bond films feel like a Bond film.
Totally. Based on like the trailers and the game snippets and stuff, it's really cool to see, he's got his witty quips and stuff, and how they've baked that into the gameplay as well. I'm really interested to feel how that plays, where you're in a situation and you can just do a classically Bondian thing of sort of charming your way out of a situation, as opposed to, those abilities that haven't really been in any of the games previously. I think that's, and they're going to have the Bond theme, presumably, because it's been in the trailers.
I know. And so you would say Casino Royale has a nice, almost perfect blend of familiarity, but also the correct amount of newness to give us variety and difference.
I would say so. Do you feel like it's a good balance as well, or do you feel like it might be skewed a little bit too much one way or the other?
I will tell you, this has been my arc, if you will, with this film, that when it first came out, I really thought it was missing too many of the Bond tropes I was looking for. Where is the Bond theme strewn throughout that you heard all the time in Die Another Day, for example? Where is this? Where is this aspect? I'm missing the cue. So all the things we talked about today, I felt it was missing too many, which is why it didn't sit well with me at first. Now I look back on it and I won't say I'm questioning it, but there are moments where I'm like, oh, okay, there really was no reason to have a Walther PPK, but there it is. There was no real reason to tell the story of the DB5 other than say, well, okay, this is how he got his DB5. It's like, how did Han Solo get the Millennium Falcon from Lando Calrissian? All right, he won it in his back game. That seems familiar. But I guess I'm a little bit more, and it could be my age, I'm a little bit more testy with the fan service, but I forgive its trespass because for me, it's untouchable. Like this film, and here's how we're going to dovetail this. This film is my number one film. It's also my number one Daniel Craig film. And then furthermore, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense if it's your number one film, David. It's my number one portrayal of Daniel Craig's James Bond. So I feel like this was my favorite watching back of how he portrays, because I got the right mix of there's a couple humorous moments, but he's dangerous, but he's romantic, but he's vulnerable, but not too vulnerable. Like I think we talked about chemistry, and this is going to be in my thumbnail somewhere. We got the chemistry and the balance just right with him and this film. And that's why I think for me, it's so seismically good as a Bond film and just as any film. But I am curious, Calvin Dyson, who's done reviews on this film before, where does Casino Royale sit 20 years later for you in the compendium?
It's definitely in the top 10.
Oh,
but it's I can't remember where I last placed it. It's been so long since my last ranking. I think it was around about 7 or 6, and that's not.
Well, that's about it. That's all the time we have today, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank Calvin for. I'm sorry, that was
amazing. That was so good.
Rude. That was rude. No, top 6 or 7. I thought you were going to say like 3. What comes before it?
GoldenEye. Oh. You are going to kick me out for this, Moonraker?
No, I get that. You love Moonraker. No, I appreciate that. No, because
Skyfall,
listen,
World Is Not Enough, Goldfinger.
You are Calvin Dyson. That you should like Moonraker because you love the chewy, gooey campiness of these things and the fun factor.
I do.
Moonraker is amazing. I get it.
Yeah. No, so again, this isn't like a ding on Casino Royale because I think it's a phenomenal film. I think we're kind of blessed as Bond fans that we've got it, to be honest, that they did Casino Royale, like the original James Bond novel. They did it such like justice with this film and even in the ways they updated it, they expanded on what's on the page. I think that it's really quite a marvel that it exists in the form that it does. But there are just some other Bond films that are just slightly pip it to the post for me. So it's in terms of Daniel Craig's portrayal of Bond, I think that's a really interesting question because I think one of the magical things about Daniel Craig is that he does do a slightly different take on the performance in each of his 5 films.
He does.
And this is him very much as the unpolished diamond. I think he has the best arc in this film. I think Spectre is, funnily enough, more of him as the classic cinematic James Bond in the terms of, he's got that confidence and that swagger. Yeah. And I love Skyfall for being more of a malaise, like later stage Fleming Bond.
I thought you were going to say Skyfall is your favorite Daniel Craig James Bond film.
Oh, it is. It is.
And maybe even the portrayal of him, because he does. One thing I do like about Skyfall is I enjoy my journey with Daniel Craig's Bond in Skyfall more than Casino Royale. Casino Royale has suspenseful, cringy, romantic moments, all these things, but it's very much like life. Whereas Skyfall is a fun romp. Like Skyfall is closer to Moonraker than Casino Royale is to Moonraker for sure.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. But I do think that Daniel Craig is quite phenomenal in Casino Royale, and I think in every other Bond film there's maybe like just one element that doesn't quite work as well as Casino Royale in terms of what we were talking about with the chemistry regarding all of the main supporting players, Bond girl, villain, Felix, ally character. In Casino Royale, it's firing on all cylinders in that regard, so there's no kind of dud element. which is again part of the magic of it, really.
I think that's appreciated by all. I do have a very unfair question for you, because I'm sort of asking you to put your analysis, PR, marketing hat on, but we just talked about where Casino Royale sits with us. Why do you think Casino Royale is one of the most beloved James Bond films, not just by James Bond fanatics or, the semi James Bond fans, but everyone that knows James Bond and watches James Bond? This usually percolates up to the top. What is it as a whole that people gravitate to?
Whenever I watch this film now, I think back to, and we went together as part of the same group, the Secret Cinema Casino Royale experience in London, which was just phenomenal, just in terms of all the interactive stuff that we got to do beforehand and play the game and stuff. But then there is a point in the evening where everyone comes together and sits down in a big theater cinema space and everyone watches the film. And I got chatting to just random people as you go about doing all the things, not necessarily even in our group, but just normies that were there, civilians. And it was interesting talking to people and kind of like, oh, there are a lot of people here that aren't even really Bond fans. It's like, oh, they remember seeing Casino Royale from at that point, it was 13 years ago or whatever. Yeah. But talking about it in oh yeah, but it's really good. And it's having great memories of it kind of thing. And talking to them a bit more. And then it's kind of vague memories of other Daniel Craig Bond films. Can't quite remember. What, Quantum of Solace? Wait, what's that? What's Skyfall? No, I don't remember. But everyone remembers Casino Royale and has a great fondness for it. And the fact that it was able to pack out Secret Cinema every day for however long they were running that is a testament to kind of how beloved this film is in a lot of ways. And I do think that it is one of those kind of transcendental Bond films that goes kind of beyond just being a good Bond film and is just a really great piece of cinema in its own right, which is why it occupies a bit of an interesting space, I think, for a lot of Bond fans, myself included, where if I'm doing my ranking and it's GoldenEye's my favorite and I prefer Skyfall to this, as I would rather watch Skyfall than Casino Royale and Moonraker. But Casino Royale is probably my most admired Bond film in terms of just everything came together so perfectly, exactly as you said. When people say oh, what's a good jumping on point for the Bond series, it's hard not to say Casino Royale, because it is just a really great piece of cinema in its own right. I think everyone was firing on all cylinders making it. It's very difficult to, no element really sticks out as a particular I wish that, maybe that person wasn't cast or what have you. It's just everything firing. And you whatever you can say about how that might have changed the trajectory of Bond films going forward, this is very much like a pivot in terms of the film series history into being something else. And I know that whether people have problems with that, and Lord knows I do. We've had that debate about Quantum of Solace. I'm not a huge fan, and Spectre as well, No Time to Die, and yet I wouldn't want to live in a world where this version of Casino Royale doesn't exist. It's just a wonderful piece of work, really. I think it's Martin Campbell's probably his best film that he's made over the course of his whole career. And I think we were blessed that they got him back to launch another James Bond.
And to your point, it is not possible to get the genie back in the bottle after that film. Yeah. There's no way. And the game that we're seeing that's coming out in May is influenced by it. I dare say Amazon's iteration, whatever it turns out to be, I think it could have more fun factors than we expect based on some evidence that I've seen. But I think that they'll also have a lot of Craig elements, the danger, you can't go backwards in time and have the Roger Moore kicking above his knee moments as far as the violence is concerned. I think you're going to have all of that. There's proof behind it. I do think when you talk about the reasons.
Sorry, that really tickled me. Sorry.
Well, he did. He didn't kick above his waist. He kicked above his knee, and good for him for doing that. Listen, A View to a Kill is charming. I think it's charming. But that being said, I hate to make it Casino Royale, such a good film, sound like a cheap buffet. But it does have something for everyone. If you want to introduce somebody to Bond and they want a romance, it has that. Action, it has that. A good storyline with an evil villain at the center of it, it has that.
Yeah.
Great stunts. We haven't even talked about the music. Chris Cornell, a song and the music by David Arnold. It has this sweeping grandeur and absolute rock ballad at the heart of it that can get the pulse pumping, even if you don't like sweeping ballads like Lawrence Arabia type stuff. But it has something for everyone. And I do tell that to people that, just a quick story. I have a friend who's a strategist who's helping me on some things. And he goes, what Bond films should I go back and watch? And I said, start with Casino Royale, because I know that's going to get him hooked to want to see other Bond films. Now, there's a little bit of bait and switch there, because then when I show him Quantum after that, he's going to be like, what happened? Why'd you do that to me? But until then, that's how you get people hooked, is by giving them a reflection of who they are. And I think Casino Royale is a wonderful reflection of what we like and who we are.
Oh, very good.
Damn. It's like I had that written down on the back of the wine bottle. By the way, I do have one more question for you, and it's an easy one. It's a light one. It's a palate cleanser, and it's a Calvin Dyson focused question, which is, in the 20th anniversary year, besides being on this channel and talking about this for a supersized episode that we just did, what are you doing to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Casino Royale?
Oh, well, this timed out really well, actually, for me, sort of doing my big in-depth videos, like going through the films. So the last one I did at the end of last year was Die Another Day. And then the next one's Casino Royale, and it happens to be the anniversary. It's always nice when those things line up, as well as, I think, at some point, a live playthrough of the Quantum of Solace video game for the PlayStation 3, which is a bit of a misnomer, really, because it's more of an adaptation of Casino Royale in a video game form than it was Quantum of Solace, because they do a flashback thing where it's like, you have like 2 levels of Quantum of Solace, and then it's like, oh, this reminds me of the time when, and then it's like fade away. But they got, Mads Mikkelsen back to do the voice. Eva Green, Daniel Craig, of course, does Bond's voice in that film. So it's, they did good getting the cast back. That's about it for now. What about you?
Are you going to any events or anything, or watching the movie like in a theater?
I don't know if there's any screenings that I've heard of here in the UK just yet. I know that you're going to one in Australia. Are you not?
So I'll be one? Well, so there's a back-to-back in Australia, the very first one. We're having the very first Gather All in Australia, April 4th.
Yeah.
And it's at a beautiful, beautiful theater that has a full bar and food and beautiful seats. But we are going to watch Casino Royale, and then literally have a 20-minute intermission to grab a drink, and then watching Quantum of Solace right after that.
Oh, this is your dream, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, it's a dream because I'm doing it with like over 100 people, and then we're going to a club to like bask in it, to talk about it, to reflect on it. So that'll be really fun. And then in July 25th in California at the Amazon-owned theater, the Culver Theater, literally almost across the street from the Amazon studios, we are going to be having the first Gather All on the West Coast, and we're going to be watching the newest and most ultimate edition of Casino Royale.
Very good.
On the big screen. Yeah.
And then you're all going to get drunk and then go storming the Amazon offices across the street.
It's what we do. It's what we do. We're going to be like, give us the portfolio, give us the secret.
Exactly.
I will say also, and I'm hoping you're a part of this, but come November, David Arnold's concert, Cue the Music. Are you going to that?
Absolutely. I cannot wait for that. Yes. No, that is, gonna be quite, because you're comparing again, right?
Yeah.
Like you're, yeah. No, of course. Yeah. No, that's going to be something quite magical. I think it's what Warren's pulled off, and I say this I feel like I say this at this point where it's like, how can you top more getting Maud and Brit over for a Man with the Golden Gun theme, next year, all the surviving money pennies, how's he going to top that? Have David Arnold there himself for a whole concert of David Arnold music. But no, it's going to be something quite special.
It's going to be amazing. And then literally this Saturday, the day before, not the night before, but Saturday at noon, I've rented out the top 2 levels of the Hippodrome, including the God's Roof, which is the big balcony, to have, I think, the first gather-all that is on Halloween.
Oh,
So it's going to be a Halloween gather-all at the Hippodrome, Bond
very
theme.
good. Nice. Oh, okay. I'll have to.
Bad
Yeah.
guys, clowns, gorillas, whatever you want to dress in. But it's going to be
Nice.
a big party, which you have to go to.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was planning on trick or treating that night, so I guess I'll.
Well, you still can.
That's true.
Well, so here's the thing I did. I know we're getting off on a tangent, but this is a fun one. It starts at noon. It's going to be a lunchtime party that ends at 5, so people can go back and be with their kids or trick or treat or go to another party.
Yeah. Oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh no, that sounds perfect. I am there. Oh, this is great.
Yeah,
Have
we
you
have a couple
mentioned
ways.
this previously? I feel like this is like a breaking news.
I've mentioned it previously, but lightly, but probably because the tickets haven't gone on, but they will very quickly. But Calvin, thank you so much for breaking down Casino Royale and talking about it and celebrating it in its 20th anniversary. Thank you for coming on.
Oh no, thank you very much for having me on. These are always fun. I always love like just waiting to see what you're gonna pull up, like what prop. It is that thing. If you'd have given me like, a year to guess that, some of the stuff that you were gonna pick up, I like the CCTV CD. I don't know if I would have got it. I love it. It's a surprise every time.
Gotta do it. Calvin, thank you for breaking it down. We'll see you in the next one. We got to do this soon.
Yes, absolutely. I want it to be Skyfall next.
Yeah. Oh, should we?
So sorry, maybe we should have just.
No, that's good. If we do
Skyfall
next, I will say I think we'll have differing opinions. I think that could actually be a debate.
Oh,
okay.
This is going to be good. Okay, we need to get a date in for this.
All right. So we'll figure that on the calendar. In the meantime, this has also been David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience. We'll see you all real soon. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching the Bond Experience. If you like what you saw, why don't you subscribe to the channel by clicking this button right here. We'll keep you up on everything new that's happening in the world of Bond. And speaking of something new, here's something new just for you because we know you so well. Talk to you soon.